Mate, it's one of the best things I've ever bought. Well, one of the best things I've ever been sent to me for my house.
Yeah.
I was going to open it on the pod this morning. It's great, isn't it? Really great, please.
This country is just, and energy. I mean, look at energy. Like, it's just, this country is going into absolute shit.
People live in their house for 30 years and love their neighbours. Then as soon as they want to do an extension, they fucking hate each other's guts.
You know, I think he'll keep the reins on Starmer. I think he's pretty much a saviour for the Western world.
Out of 10, how's mine, Dorian's and Stuart's walk? No,
Well,
I'm just interested.
I would say Dorian walks like a nerd. Like, you know he's smart from his walk, you know?
That's because he wears Skechers. That's because he went to a black tie dinner in Skechers.
Roundup sound, ooh, yeah. Real estate deals. We lay them down, let's get those deals. Deals, deals, making money, baby.
Mate, it's one of the best things I've ever bought. Well, one of the best things I've ever been sent to me for my house. I was going to open it on the pod this morning. It's great, isn't it? Really great, please. I feel like I'm an Eskimo, though, mate, because this thing is so warm. I've had to open the window. It's like letting all my heat out.
Yeah, they're warm. But we went, it was trying to find an Urban Outfitters, like, oversized, like, just pure comfort hoodie. I'm not massive on the band at the bottom. I think, what do you think about the band?
Tucks in the old fat pieces, mate. Yeah, I like that. Just fold it over.
Yeah, I fold mine up.
I feel like I've got a warm hug on.
Yeah, mate.
You can tell someone in the North ordered this, mate, because I do feel like I'm an Eskimo. It's a bit...
Yeah,
yeah, it's great.
Nah, they are cushy, though. Definitely cushy. Do they fit you guys all right? You both got XLs in it.
What flap are you on about?
This little flap here.
The band at the bottom's extra size, so you can fold it.
Oh, right.
Do you know what I mean? You fold it up.
Yeah, I like it. I haven't done any folding.
Can we get some summer ones as well, though? Or some, can we get a thinner one, mate? We should do like maybe 3 and get some on the website.
Summer range. We've got the summer range coming out.
Again, seasonal range.
Yeah.
Summer range.
I'm down, mate. Yeah, I mean, I just thought, fuck it, we should all have a hoodie. It'll just look cool. But yeah, I mean,
it's a bit more professional as well.
Yeah,
trouble is, we do need to get a couple. We've only got one, obviously. Yeah, but I can't wear this in bloody the spring, mate. I'll be sweltering. I'm already hot now. I've got all the heat busting up through this Velux window just to try and keep it on, mate, to make the whole podcast.
To be honest, I wanted to wear one in the vlogs for like the Bow Partners channel, so that, because I always raise the podcast whenever possible. I try and like squeeze it in there. Go, don't forget to subscribe too. And now I've got the hoodie, I can just wrap it.
Yeah, I'll watch it, mate.
Don't forget, guys. Don't forget.
I find it highly amusing on a Sunday evening just to have 15 minutes with you and good old Kane.
K9, mate. Yeah, lovely, man.
How's your podcast going as well, Jack?
Yeah, good. We I might be flying solo tonight. Ben's expecting his second little baby boy, literally like today or tomorrow or Sunday. But no, it's good. It's good. It's to be fair, it's when you have like long form content on YouTube, it does take a while to get traction. But I feel that our followers are such like routine followers now. We probably have between 100 and 300 people that just every week don't miss it. And it's just incrementally growing up. But it's good. It's nice and informative because we just talk about the week and
almost
put it out there, and we allow people to ask questions,
don't you?
Live.
Like you
we share screen on deals. Yeah,
that's banging. I mean, how do people find it if people listen to this and they've not watched it yet?
Yeah, so it's just on YouTube, so XP Property or the Property Experts podcast on Spotify. So on all the same channels. But yeah, it's I suppose the beauty of it is you can ask a question while we're live on Friday and get it answered that day.
I was going to ask you how many episodes you actually live on.
Yeah, over 80%.
Oh wow, okay. Oh, I'll start leaving some comments then. I thought it was all pre-recorded. I thought there's no way they spend every Friday.
Most Fridays. Yeah, and I suppose that's the beauty of it. You can just ask, like, if people pay us, £300 an hour for one-to-one mentoring, all of that is free. If you just ask a question, we're going to answer it for free. And I know it's obviously not that much in-depth detail on your business and things like that, but why not? It's almost also like asking our group a question. Like it's 3 questions. Why not?
Well, why wouldn't you? Yeah. Well, we've got some questions today, boys. Don't worry, we've got some questions to go through. But importantly, just to kick off this episode, welcome back, episode 30. We're doing well here. 30 fucking episodes. It is kind of mad. I was looking back at, I was trying to pick out some documents from before, and I saw back on the Google Drive, and it was April, I think, when we started. I think it was April. And it feels like, yeah, mate, it just fucking flies. Like, albeit a year in no time. So yeah, 30 episodes. And today, this week, time recording, we're recording on the 8th. So this week on the 5th, we found out on the 6th that the US president has now been confirmed. It's going to be Mr. Donald Trump. So we'll start off with Trump news. I'm sure anyone who has an internet connection cannot get away from this. Obviously, you'd have seen loads about it. So we won't bang on too much about, all the politics and everything around it. I think it is a positive move. But let's just look at some of the core things, and then just particularly how that affects the UK, which is obviously our domain. So yeah, Mr. Trump's in. He wins. Congrats. And he did his huge, mate. Did his big speech. And he was great about his speech as well. There was no shitting on the opposition. He brought on a lot of the key people who obviously helped and supported him throughout the process. It was just a very it was humble as far as Trump goes. I don't think the man is particularly humble, but but neither should you be if you're going to be the president of the United States. You should have a lot of conviction behind you. And it was just great to see just the power team this guy's built, which is fucking nuts. I mean, I know we spoke about it before, but you got Trump himself, who's, no shits given, deal maker, done it all his life, and that's what you need to be as a president. You got Elon Musk next to him now, Robert F. Kennedy, Vivek Ramaswamy, J.D. Vance, Tulsi, forget her second name, just a serious team there to go and try and attack the government effectively and reduce government size and reduce government bureaucracy, reduce government spending as an experiment that hopefully we can witness in the UK and then adopt over here as well. So very excited to see this term. I've never been excited about a presidential term. Usually it's just another president, but the agenda with this presidency is going to be interesting. It was a landslide victory. He won the public vote. He won the electoral college vote. He won the seats in the House, the Senate. Like, it was a clear victory, which is good because I was worried that this was going to be like, can I just take over the news for the next month, and it was going to be contentious. Who really won? And then ballot counting and all the shit that could come with it. Fortunately, it's not that. Trump's in, done and dusted. Biden also did a speech yesterday. I thought it was actually a really good speech. I thought he sounded quite wise. He also said some stuff in there and said it's been the best presidential term. Look at all of what we've achieved and things like that. And I, not quite seeing where the supporting data is for that. It looks like objectively one of the worst presidential terms in history. So bit of that. Kamala did her speech as well, which was again just sort of fluffy, thanking everyone and things like that. But don't want to get too political, but it's just like, where's the substance from our political leaders these days? It is missing. And then I just wanted to recommend to anyone out there, I've been watching this over the course of Trump's campaign, and equally trying to find stuff on the Democrats, but they're not as open and transparent with the media. They don't do as many podcasts. It's hard to find information. But there's a thing called Art of the Surge, and I believe it's Tucker Carlson who is sort of behind this, and it's a documentary that follows Trump very transparently behind the scenes, sat in his living room, sat in his wherever, in the car, into the rally. You see the behind the scenes of the assassination attempt. You then see them go back to the same Pennsylvania rally with increased security. You see all this stuff behind the scenes for 6 episodes. I think there's a 7th and an 8th one coming out, half an hour. You really get to know the man, and you really get to know the reasons behind the campaign. And all I can say from watching these documentary pieces is this guy just is a happy-go-lucky character. He just wants to chat to everyone. And there's all kinds of bits, where the camera's not even really filming. So he doesn't even know the camera's on him, but he's just chatting to everyone and making jokes and being banterful. And it's really refreshing to see from someone who's going to be one of the most powerful people in the world in a powerful position. So it's well worth going to watch the documentary if you're interested. But let's move on from that and go to UK politics, because we've got David Lammy, who is our foreign secretary, who, and this is obviously been getting a bit of press recently, he said in 2017 on his Twitter. This is, quote, RE, Daily Mail story today. Yes, if Trump comes to the UK, I will be out protesting on the streets. He is a racist KKK and Nazi sympathizer. You then have a tweet from the 6th of November. So as Trump's now got into power, the same guy, David Lammy, is saying, congratulations to Donald Trump on your victory. The UK has no greater friend than the US, and the special relationship being cherished on both sides of the Atlantic for more than 80 years. We look forward to working with you and JD Vance in the years ahead. Obviously, stark contrast in tweets there. Now, what I will say, in fairness to David Lammy, is at the time that he tweeted that in 2017, the press was just all over Trump and super biased. And you could see that through Google rankings and all kinds of stuff, and journo articles on Republicans compared to Democrats. The ratios in America is substantially Democrats who are journalists, and therefore it skews the bias in the media. So in fairness to David Lammy, at the time, Donald Trump was public enemy number one in the media. But still, for our foreign secretary now to have had this kind of public interaction with, a president-elect, it's just not a great look for the UK. But in fairness, the media is very biased. And here's the media again stirring up the shit on David Lammy, saying Keir Starmer stands by foreign secretary who called Donald Trump a neo-Nazi sympathizing sociopath. So the media don't give a fuck. They're just gonna make their money, make the noise wherever possible. They'll shame David Lammy, or they'll support the neo-Nazi sympathizing rhetoric. The media just don't give a shit, and the media are obviously the problem. But anyway, just thought that's worth putting out there, because he is our foreign secretary now, and we need a good relationship with the US, and we need a free trade agreement. And you'll also see in this picture here, we have a new leader of the Tory cabinet, which has kind of gone under the radar with all the news we've had recently. So new leader, Kemi Badenoch, if that's how you say her name, is the new leader of the Tory party. I didn't know much about her at all. I've done a little bit of reading over the last few days just to understand a bit more about her. She seems like a great character, as far as, us wanting a strong, rational, smart-minded person in a seat of power in the UK. She talks about first principle approach and first principle thinking, which is very refreshing to hear. So she said, Kemi Badenoch became the first black woman to lead a UK party and the fourth woman to lead the Conservatives. But behind those labels, which she hates being identified with, who is she? Born in Wimbledon, raised in Nigeria, and trained in computer systems engineering, Badenoch was elected as a Conservative MP in 2017. She was given her first ministerial role by Boris Johnson in 2019, and in 2022 was promoted to cabinet by Liz Truss in the International Trade Secretary. So, yeah, interesting character.
Is that the only good thing Liz Truss has ever done?
Possibly, yeah, possibly.
Good on her. Good on her.
Liz Truss, yeah. It gives me PTSD just hearing that name. So that's that. And then, of course, this week we've had Bank of England base rate cuts. So we've gone from 5% BOE down to a nice steady 4.75%, which I think we all pretty much talked about the last podcast. I think we all thought it'd be 0.25. I know we had a bit of a guessing game, but yeah, 0.25 was reasonable. And that, I think, is it for some of the headlines for now. Just been a mental 2 weeks, really, hasn't it? From the budget to US politics, a new Tory leader. There's all kinds of things going on. What do you think, guys? Any comments? Anything you've seen since the election? Go on, boys.
Stu's got some really good comments. Thanks for sharing.
Really
Stu.
good.
You're on
mute. You're on mute, mate, but it's nice to hear.
I drink my tea coffee without having it on mute, because I can't stand it when I watch other podcasts and you hear all the gulps and stuff. Go on, Rye. Oh, I thought I was going to hear you gulp. Yeah, it's been mental, man. I've sort of followed so much about Donald Trump this season. Can't believe how brainwashed we all were in 2016 when he got in. I don't think even Trump thought he was going to get in his first term. And then to watch the left sort of, criminalise him, rip him apart, find anything they could on him in the previous past. This time, when he lost his election, whether it was voter fraud or not, he went away and he understood
being shot.
How the machine works. All being shot. I mean, it's just been it's horrifying, really, how how far how radical that the left could potentially be. But who knows? Ultimately, he went away. When he first went in on his first term, he didn't understand the machine. Like when you run for president, I watched obviously quite a few podcasts. When you run for president, you don't actually know how the machine works or what the job role involves. And the second he got in, he was then obviously led to all these decisions he had to make based on the institution and the structure that was there. Obviously the Republican side. And this time when he went back in, he's built this army of people. I mean, Elon Musk on his side, JD Vance, what a legend. I hope he becomes the next president. Obviously, Trump can't run for a third term, so I'm hoping that he just goes Republican. And it's going to be an interesting 4 years. The stock market's loving it. Everyone the generation above us, as people I spoke to, they seem to be quite nervous that he's an inward thinker. He's America first. He's, fuck the rest of the EU. And I don't think he's that at all. I think when you look into him and watch a lot more about him, he's up for world peace. He wants to try and stop the wars. I just think he's a generally good guy, and I'm so gutted I really writ him off the first time, and this time I'm just full Trump, man. Go and change the way that the world politics work, and I'm hoping he's going to pull our left side into more central. And I think he'll keep the reins on Starmer. I think he's pretty much a savior for the Western worlds, and good luck to him, man.
Yeah, I think there's a really interesting change in campaign approach now, mostly due to podcasts, and it's being said now that Trump's victory comes down to his adoption of podcasts over mainstream media. So the things you're talking about there, the reason you didn't like Trump or didn't know much about Trump, and I was the same back at that time. I quite liked Trump because purely he was a businessman going into politics. And I was like, regardless what the fucking media says, it's all political shit. I don't know really what the truth is. He seems a bit narcissistic, but he's a businessman and he's hopefully going to be able to get deals done. And that was just my assumption of Trump before. And it's only now on this campaign where he's really been on podcasts, which apparently is down to his son. I forgot his son's name. But his son, really tall one, 6'9", this guy is, and he said
Top
to Trump,
Jr.
Top
Trump's
Trump.
His name.
That's it.
Yeah.
Top Trump. He said he stressed to Trump. Apparently, this is what's sort of like coming out now, that because he does a lot of social media and like data analyzing of social media and like what's trending, what's the right things to look at, and he said you need to get on podcasts, and it's podcasts that have taken over in the last year. And this was predicted over the last few years, that decentralized media is going to take over public narrative, public discourse. And we've seen that happen for years, but the rate that podcasts helped.
Do you know what's really interesting with the podcast side of things? So one of the obviously more famous podcasts that he featured on was Joe Rogan's podcast show. When was it? 2 weeks ago? And Joe Rogan was saying in the podcast interview that he did about a week ago with Elon, he was saying that his viewership was 1.5 million views an hour, which is more than any video has ever been watched on YouTube, and obviously long form video, and it still wasn't pushed as trending, and people couldn't see it. It wasn't getting pushed into people's homepages. I watched Joe Rogan podcast. It wasn't getting pushed to my homepage, but it was actually my wife that sent it through to me on a URL, and it actually kept breaking. The video wouldn't load and work. So that there's still elements of control creeping in, even in free speech. And Joe Rogan openly says this on YouTube. He says, YouTube were not trending or pushing my video, and you're watching another YouTube video of his. So it'll be interesting to see how that media reacts, because they've sort of been called out on it, really. They either can him and YouTube limit him from using it, or they go, you know what, fair enough, you exposed us, won't do it again.
Well, the way that CNN was exposed as well. I mean, I was brainwashed watching CNN during COVID. That was the only way we could get feeds 24 hours on my telly and stuff. I was watching CNN in the evenings. And the way they obviously painted the brush about Donald Trump, and obviously being ran, it's actually who the elites are who own CNN, who own the media and all the rest of it. I mean, I'm not going to go into conspiracies and QAnon and all the rest of the shit that's coming out. But I mean, you have got P. Diddy and a load of his supporters supporting that side. So we all know Trump was a TV star and a business venture and all the rest of it. But that's all we sort of knew about him. And then second he got into power and had these decisions, he just got turned into this crazy porn star shagging, pussy grabbing, guy. They basically stripped everything they could find about him, and then they just tried to cancel him, and then obviously trying to shoot him at the end. I think that was obvious now.
What Elon talks about in the interview with Joe Rogan is that he says that where the US world has gone is they pick the person and then they pick the crime. And he brought up a phrase where he said, I can't actually remember who said the phrase, but the phrase is, if you show me a man, I'll show you the crime. And, Elon's crime, because he's been attacked too, is principally because they wanted to try and punish him somehow. So he's also saying that that's the same nature as Trump. And interestingly, so I've watched the documentary, Ryan. I've been
nice,
like plugged into probably more US politics than I have UK politics for the last decade because obviously I'm married to Kelly, and at the dinner table all we talk about is politics. And to your comment, Stuart, if you show me the channel that people watch, whether it's Fox News, CNN, I can tell you where they vote, what they vote for, and why they vote for that way. It's almost like groups and clouds of people that follow a very narrow path. Whereas in the UK, the BBC is the BBC, and we just trust it. You don't really have your neighbour that watches ITV because they don't believe in BBC's morals. It's just kind of the news is the news. But interestingly, having followed it for that period, I do think that there's a few things that I'm hoping to change. Creation of more free speech, which Elon and Trump are for, and obviously supporting that. And then second is like that you can't suppress or create vision for people, especially, it's kind of fine that the news do it because, as you said, they're meddlers. Their job is to sort of exaggerate things and create drama. And that is just the nature of being in the limelight. But when a country is trying to do that to you, I think that's completely immoral. And it was interesting. I saw a girl's Instagram story that lives in England saying, I'm concerned about Trump coming in because of all of his allegations. And I'm like, you fucking live in England. Like, there's not going to be, I don't think there's going to be that much, it's not like he lives in the same town as us and he's running around. He's doing exactly what Stu said. I won't use the same frames again, but I think it's so far removed and so exaggerated. It just needs to be down to business. And the last thing that I'd really like for this to push more of, which hopefully comes over the pond to our way, is more business ethics within politics. Because I was watching the Boris Johnson and interview on Diary of the CEO, and the stat is something like 36% of the UK politicians come from Eton. And I can guarantee that they're not the best for educating in like business acumen. I mean, you can't. 36% of the people coming out that secondary school will not be the best leaders, and that's just a fact. It's just because they know who they know who they know, and they are who they are, and they were 3 years below such and such, so they've already gotten in from a relationship perspective. The best business owners rise to the top. The free market makes the cream rise to the top, and Donald Trump has done that time and time again. He's been a solid and resound business owner in the States and ridden through several recessions, and keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And you can see that from the setbacks that he has. And if someone like Liz Truss was put through what he's been through, they would have buckled and fucked off and run. But he doesn't. So I think business leadership is definitely something that should be integrated more into politics. I can't actually remember the guy's name, but there's a young business owner that was supporting Trump as well. Sort of like a tech billionaire, and a super switched on guy. Musk. And he was also no, it wasn't. It was another bloke. I think Elon probably took the reins and said, "I'll take this over. I'm the king. I'm a little nerdy king, but I am a king." But anyway, so I mean, I love it. I don't believe that Donald Trump is going to be the best president in the world. I believe that he's the best option that the United States have at the moment in time, and it's a good decision for them to go with him at the moment. But I do think there's been a lot of shit flying around in politics, in media, in freedom of speech, and I think this will help resolve a lot of that shit worldwide.
I would be slightly more bullish on Trump in terms of his ability as a president, because fundamentally, what does a president have to do? What does a prime minister have to do? They have to be able to. They're basically the marketing engine of a campaign and of policies. Their whole job is to barter deals, get deals done, and to in some way control public discourse. So they have to be good at talking and good at not giving their hand away for national security reasons, for global competitiveness, all those kind of things. And I don't see a better man than Trump, other than other very, very savvy business leaders. So as far as politicians go, I don't think there's a better politician than Trump. But equally, there may be better businessmen than Trump who could take that seat. But as far as getting deals done, the guy's just got a track record of getting deal after deal after deal. And I think if he can adopt those same principles, when looking at Ukraine, it'll be telling to see what he can get done with Ukraine. Be telling to see what he can get done in the Middle East. And obviously he's got the Abraham Accords, which I think will be interesting to see them reinforced again. There's all kinds of things that I think he can get done with those being his main character traits, that he's just a good deal maker, not a particularly likable character, but neither do we want that. That's the problem with most politicians, trying to please everyone. They never get fucking anything done.
So I think actually the more you learn about Trump, the more of a people person he is. I mean, if that episode 6, watched that one that you sent through. I mean, you can tell the staff love him.
Let me just confirm that. Behind the scenes, yes, he's a lovely guy, but obviously on the forefront, he's not meant to be Putin's best mate. He's not meant to come across going, "Oh, we love Russia. Yeah, we don't want any Russians to die. We don't want any Ukrainians to die." He's not doing that. He's not trying to be nice and likable. He's going, too many people are dying. Too many stupid decisions are being made. We need to fucking get shit done. Zelensky's coming over here as a salesman.
Who cares who wins? No one cares.
Yeah.
No one cares who wins. We just stop people dying. That's the first thing. It's like, it doesn't matter who wins and who loses. Just stop it. I mean, but he's amazing at building a team, and I think that's what's going to come out of that's going to rise to the top is the team he's built around this time. I mean, they're like a superpower in themselves. I think they're going to destroy the health market and big pharma. I think they're going to change the way business works. I think Elon Musk is going to go now make £2 trillion worth of savings. People should be nervous. So look what he's done with X. I never used to use Twitter because it used to be another channel that I didn't see the value of, and now it's pretty much the only social media I use. That and Instagram to keep on top of local stuff. But X is just a great, unbiased, raw content form of what actually is happening in the world. I'm a massive advocate of X now, and that's obviously Elon's got in there, got rid of 85% of the staff, and it works better than it's ever done. Yeah. And if he does that to American costs,
Speaking of X, let me just bring something up that Jack touched on about business leaders coming into politics. So Elon Musk just tweeted off the back of a guy, another guy who put a video up about the A-team coming to American politics and like businessmen actually coming in and making a difference. And Elon tweeted this, and I quote, "America's A-team is usually building companies in the private sector. Once in a long time, reforming government is important enough that the A-team allocates time to government. This is that time." And that's what he's saying there. We've got the same problem in the UK. These fucking wish-washy idiots in Parliament constantly going back and forth on stupid rhetoric when they need to be looking at the pragmatic facts and looking at how do you actually grow a business. We need to cut your fucking overheads. You need to improve inefficiencies. Those are the things that aren't getting talked about in Parliament. And it's business owners that are going to come in pragmatically, look at the numbers and go, well, we need to do that, we need to do that, we need to do that. Fuck all of this socio-politics that take up so much of the breathing room, and just get people in there who are going to cut the fat. And I completely agree with Jack. There's just too many people who are career politicians in our Parliament who've come from Eton, come from Oxford. These are people who've, careered their way in through sort of socialites and working their way up the ladder and never had any tangible experience in the free market. So how can we?
They've been wrapped in cotton. They've been wrapped in cotton wool. Yeah. It's the fundamentals of it. They've been doing an exercise for years. It's all figurative and here in a fucking mahogany room. But actually, if you put them out on their own 2 feet and said, right, shit's going to come at you from all different angles when you don't expect it, and this is your livelihood and you've got to feed your family with this, crack on. It's a completely different handout.
Yeah, it's so different. I think we're going to
create hard times. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. I mean, it's one of the
stormy seas create good sailors.
Yeah. But it's going to be the free market. It's the free market. And I mean, I've fucking heard Obama saying stuff like this. I never thought much of Obama as a president. I thought he fit the stand, the stature of a president. He had a deep voice. He spoke really well. He walked lovely. He shook hands nicely. Presented well.
Walks lovely.
He did. He just walks like a president. He had that. He was the all-star president that you wanted. He was just like this guy, which is great.
Betcha.
do you know what I mean? It's great for looking strong, but I don't understand, what great
Yeah, but
values he brought
he's a
to American
puppeteer.
politics. He is
I mean,
exactly a
even
puppeteer.
Ryan, out of
Kamala's
10,
exit speech. Even Kamala's
Ryan, out
exit
of 10,
speech was exactly the same as Clinton's.
Yeah.
Go on, mate.
Out of 10, how's mine, Dorian's, and Stuart's walk? No, I'm just interested.
I would say Dorian walks like a nerd. Like, he's smart from his walk.
That's because he wears Skechers. That's because he went to a black tie dinner in Skechers.
Dorian walks like a nerd. Stuart walks like he's trying not to bump his head on anything because the guy's
I have to watch
tall.
my head.
And Jack, you're not far behind him. So I try and look taller when I walk. That's the.
I didn't realise you're a walking connoisseur, Roy.
Well, Jack asked. I thought I'd give my opinion. But just back to Obama, because he was his president, whatever, but he's now talking about things like. It's amazing. The growth in government is owed to the growth in the economy in America is owed to the public sector. It is public funding that grows the economy. He genuinely believes that as a socialist, believes that it is the government who grows
Your internet's going
an
again,
economy.
mate.
Oh shit, I'm lagging.
Just need to keep winding him down. He's going to have to cancel this as well, probably.
Hello.
Look at that frame.
Back.
He's back. You're back.
I'm back. That's
that dodgy internet yours, mate. You've got to wind it back up again.
It's fucked.
You're right in the middle of a sentence then. Carry on.
I can go off on a quick tangent while you sort off on your Wi-Fi.
No, he cancels it. He shut the pod.
Yeah. It should be all right now. Does it work now? Is it all right?
Just speak slower, Roy, and the internet will keep up.
Yeah, hopefully. All right,
I don't think that's how the internet works, Stu. Put more coal in it.
It does up in the north, mate.
But anyway, I don't want to rant on too long. It was just that Obama was, a 2-term president. He was renowned around the world, loved. And this is the same guy is now saying things like growth in the economy is owed to the public sector because it's the public sector that invests into the economy and that allows the private sector to propagate. It's just so socialist. It's so backwards. The private sector funds everything that the public sector has ever done. The only benefit of the public sector is that it can aggregate funds from a lot of people and help open up new industry, but only by taking from the private sector. So it can invest in space programs, invest in nuclear energy, invest in infrastructure projects, because it has a war chest given to it from the benefits and the proceeds of the private sector. And it's just a scary rhetoric that comes from, the left side of politics, where, the government is the be all and end all of the economy. And it's just so wrong. It is the private sector that contributes everything to the economy, and the public sector that takes from that and then can appropriate funds in whichever way it sees fit. And sometimes that should be to the betterment of new industry, paving new pathways. Completely agree with that. But it's just a scary rhetoric that we're hearing, because and this is why we need private sector individuals to come into politics and just reshape it and just go, no, let's get back to, pragmatic thinking in our leadership. But let's just touch on the X point, because it's a very important point. And anyone listening at home, and Jack mentioned this as well, we are nowadays in the world of media, we are now siloed into algorithmic echo chambers, and you can only notice it when you deliberately try and step out and go and find independent sources of media. So if you are listening to CNN, if you are listening to Fox, if you're listening to the BBC, you are in their silo of news feedback, and you will only hear biased stories. And it's great to see that X app is now #1 news app in almost every major country around the world. And X is the place to go get your information. You have to learn how to use X. You don't just want to go, if you just go and search for Trump on X or you just go search for Kamala, then the same algorithmic feedback loops can start to come in. So you just want to be managing your algorithms. I think everyone needs to have an awareness of, whatever you interact with on the internet, the algorithms are designed to feed you more of that shit. So you've got to try and step out of it and go, okay, I understand it's doing that to me. Now I need to go find some independent sources if I want to get the right information.
You can also set up, to get around that, you can set up separate accounts as well. So I set up a separate X account just for any crypto updates and stuff I wanted to follow certain people. And then you can set up a separate account for different things and different passions. So yeah, that's a way around it, really. Because it was my missus' birthday yesterday, and we were walking around John Lewis, and I saw one of these masks, you put on your face and sort of your lines out and does all that stuff. And I said, "Oh, you get one of these," because she was on about a few creases, getting older and stuff. And she's like, "Oh, have you seen everyone on Instagram wearing these and pushing them?" I'm like, "I've not seen one person on my Instagram feed wearing these fucking ghost masks, you know." And she, I was like, "It's just like she's like every other post she gets, they're just selling health stuff." And I'm like, "I didn't get any of that."
Girl echo chambers, mate. Girl echo chambers are mad. Yeah,
I don't think I'm their market. Yeah,
yeah, but
it's just to touch on an analogy of what Ryan's getting at with the news. It's a bit like if you don't find other and independent sources, it's a bit like going to court for a case and only seeing one side of the topic. So you're only seeing it from the prosecution side or only seeing it from the defense side, and then you don't get to see anything else because whatever you're watching is going to, even Ryan talking there about Trump. I knew from the way he was talking about it before he even said it was a good thing. He knew it was a good thing because deep down he was supportive of it. And then he was positive about how he talked about it, and he was already influencing me that he was a fan of Trump. So it's all about the sort of angle of the conversation. You have to see realistically what Elon Musk loves, and the reason that he bought X is because it's freedom of speech and it's corroboration. If someone has a view or someone has an opinion or someone saw something this way, someone is able to make a comment and argue their view or say, the state of the fact. And then what happens is herd community support the fact because, 3 people against one will go, no, that's incorrect. So what he loves is you can actually comment. If you try and comment on something on Fox News or CNN or whatever it may be, if they post it on Facebook, they'll just delete your comment.
Yeah. He basically compared it to the old town hall, right? It's like the modern way of everyone being able to have their own opinion. It's just brilliant. Yeah, the town square.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so important for anyone listening. Like, and I've like sort of been training the family on this over the last year because your parents, all of our parents, they will be most likely getting their news from the media. And honestly, my dad's he's in his 60s, but he's very clued up on like trying to make sure that he's getting like independent sources of information, trying to think for himself. Like he's always been sort of that way because he's had to work for himself in the private sector. I think it's a businessman trait to call bullshit and try and look for answers. But my mum has always just consumed the media and the news. The news channel goes on and that's what she's consumed. And over the last year, I've been trying to send her more podcasts and she listened to the Joe Rogan and Trump one. I was so surprised she listened to it. And and literally for the first time she listened to that. And we had a pragmatic conversation about policies, objective truths, things you can actually measure, not rhetoric. And she was understanding things and going, yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Like I understand where he's coming from now, rather than just these snippets that get bought out by mainstream media to always paint things in some sort of agenda. Whereas if you just listen to a podcast, anyone out there, if your parents aren't listening to podcasts or old people around you who aren't listening to podcasts and instead are consuming media, just get them to cancel their fucking media subscriptions. Fuck the Times, fuck the Independent, fuck the BBC. Go on X and go and find the sources of info from the experts. It's such an important cultural shift, I think, for all of us to start to get the right sources of information. Otherwise, we get around to our next political campaign here, and we're going to be hearing all this shit from mainstream media. It's going to take up all of our time again. Whereas you could just ignore all of that, just let it all go above your head. Just go on X or go to YouTube, listen to the podcast, make your own opinion, and then just sort of come what may of what you think, rather than just fed all this shit all the time. But anyway, that's my
who else is going to meet their contractor on site, and the contractor goes, all right, what are we doing? And you go, I'm going to build a wall. It's going to be huge. I'm going to build a wall.
Oh, fucking hell. I hope he gets that wall done. Fuck me. They need that wall.
Anyway, I've got a nice anecdote about having an American wife and going traveling the world. So I was in Poland at the weekend.
Oh, nice.
So
you look well nice, mate.
Bought a nice Poznan mug.
We need some ground up mugs, mate. That's what we need next.
We actually talked about it because when I ordered you your bottles, Ryan thought I was ordering you mugs.
Yeah, no, I was like,
but anyway, so I just wanted to give you a bit of American culture, a bit of a mockery of the wife. But anyway, so bought a nice Poznan mug. It was a lovely independent shop that we went into. Nice old bloke had been making these pots for years, and he was called Starbucks. So I just loved it. I was like, this is so uncultural. We're in a European city and we're buying a fucking mug from
American coffee.
Fucking hell. It looks
They're quite
nice,
popular though. We don't collect them, but I mean, the missus like some. I can't remember
We've
what the
got.
name of the person.
There you go, Peru, Machu Picchu. I've actually got
Emma Bridgewater. These are all Emma Bridgewater mugs that she collects. But
Barcelona.
yeah,
Our thing is always new mug, new place, new mug.
Nice. Yeah, we collect stones. We always go try collect a stone. So I took a stone from one of the fucking castles or something in the south of France. I went to the bottom of the wall, like over the fence, and just sort of like pulled it off and then took it back. So we have like a little jar of stones from different places we've been, which is kind of annoying. Yeah, well, yeah, stoners. But you also forget where the stones come from. So I'm looking at this pile of rocks going, I don't actually know where they're from. But fuck it, it's a nice thought. But anyway,
was probably just from one of your sites.
Yeah, no, I don't know. But mugs is a good idea, I suppose. Yeah,
bit of slate here, you never know when you need to either knock someone on the head with it. But that was actually in Wales. I went to a slate mine, and my mate who I took, he was like, "Oh, we got to take a bit of slate home." I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with it, but thought I'd make it into a award one day.
Paperweight, mate. Fuck it.
Award's a good idea, actually.
What's that?
Award's a good idea.
Yeah, stick a little award. Make my own an award. Seem to not be able to win the awards, Jack? You keep cleaning them up, mate. You award-winning developer, you
award snob.
Got another one on Tuesday, actually.
Have you?
What are you up for?
Yeah, it's got a good ring to it, though, isn't it? Award-winning business.
Is it?
It's great. Depends. It's all biased, mate. That's why I didn't fucking enter this time. I was like, it's all biased, mate. They all click together. If you don't pay them more, you have to pay them more money to win. That's how it works.
To sponsor them.
You do. You need to pay off the judges.
Right. Let's go back to just closing off then. So anyone out there, get your information from independent sources. Look on X, etc., etc. But that is US politics over. I do want to get your guys' thoughts though, just quickly. One of the most important things that needs to happen between now and the 20th of fucking January, when Trump gets in, is Starmer needs to get a trade deal done with America, because it's very clear that Trump is going to up tariffs for everywhere. Anyone that wants to trade with the US, he's going to up tariffs to try and entice manufacturers to come into the United States. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens to the economy when they do that. I agree with the way he's thinking about it. I think they have all the power to do it, so why not do it? But we as the UK do not want to incur huge tariffs from America, particularly when we're a trade partner with them. So we need to get a UK free trade deal done. What do you guys think?
And we fucked it up in Europe as well, so we can't do that in Europe. So we want a good trade deal across the pond.
And we fuck the farmers, so they're not going to make any food for us. So we really are up shit street, really, aren't we?
Yeah, it's just this country is just, and energy. I mean, look at energy. Like, it's just this country is going into absolute shit from all of the stupid shit. It's environment, it's diversity, it's all this shit, and we're going to pay the price for it massively.
There was a thing on that Ranjan said on his podcast the other day, which was, if you look at the Labour side, no one has ever made any money out of the British pound. Like, no one has taken a pound and made £2 or £3 out of that pound. And I think the one of the MPs, there's only one MP that's got like 9 properties, and he's like the most advanced on that side who've actually been in business, which is quite a scary thought, because if you've got everyone who knows how to spend money and sort of protect the money, like the difference in the States is that you've got a businessman who understands how the cycle of cash goes in and out of industry. And if you've got no one in our politics that's doing that, and just know how to borrow and spend on things they think is right, that is detrimentally, we're fucked, basically. In 4 years' time, we're going to have zero money. It'll all be spent throwing more shit against the wall. And it's quite a scary thought, really. If no one actually has a business mind in our politics, then we're fucked.
And it's so crucial.
UK PLC is a business.
Yeah, we need food independence. We need energy independence. Like, we need these things more than we need fucking carbon net neutral zero shit. Like, it's so stupid. Like, what's the point of destroying? Yeah, I mean, destroying our economy.
Well, we need it, but we need to prioritize it. We need to prioritize everything. And at the moment, they're trying to put all the woke stuff at the top to try and make that really important to get fake clicks and people to think that's more important.
Which is one reason I think it's good. Which actually one reason I think it's good Trump getting in, because he's not the woke. He's already one of his policies that he's bringing out is no males are allowed to compete in female sporting activities that have changed genders. And like, that is the influence that we need on our country, because that is the example of just leave it as it is and focus on the important things, and exactly like you say, getting a good return on investment rather than making sure, like, in someone that changed bodies can fucking beat everyone up because they're double the weight and got double the muscle growth in a category. Like, it's focusing on the more important things.
Yeah, it's mental. But we need this carbon and energy thing is just so stupid. Like, it's so stupid. There is no, and we're seeing it. Like, I ranted about it on the vlog the other day because we're building control. We had to do this thermal upgrade now because of the new regs that are coming. And I'm like, that's another 20 grand to offset supposed carbon, because apparently carbon causes global warming. Like, there's so much bollocks there, which is unscientific and biased. Like, there's actually, if you look at that, there's some really good documentaries on this that go to the experts in all kinds of things, from geology and understanding the history of rock formations and things like that in the world. People who test, what do you call them? Ice, not ice tubes, but they
ice
go
caps.
Now that they go and take out basically like compounds of ice. And then they test it, carbon date it, and they look back over, all the history through the ice age, and they look at carbon levels and where they were before. Carbon levels, and they can look at temperature levels based on the compactness of the ice, and they can see how icy and how cold it was at that time, the carbon levels and things like that. You look back historically, the data is pretty fucking clear. Carbon levels have swung up and down to extreme levels for millions of years, long before humans ever got here. Temperature levels have swung up and down for millions of years, long before humans ever got here. And what they're trying to show, what these scientists are trying to show, this is backed by government incentive. There's government incentive, particularly in America, to fund any scientists in any respective fields, whether they're in agriculture, whether they're in rock studies, whether they're testing water and ocean temperatures.
You're fucked if they're in rock studies. They're coming around your house.
Oh yeah, I'd be well fucked. Still in my rocks.
Well, their rocks back.
But they
Chateau
incentivize.
Debut is in Darlington.
Fucking hell! Don't derail me. This is good. Yeah, this is good. This is good info. People got to go look at this stuff. The government has incentivized these scientists to go and find evidence of carbon increasing in their respective fields. Now, if they don't find evidence, they don't get funded. And there's hundreds of thousands of people on this payroll. So there's hundreds of thousands of scientists finding signs conveniently of carbon increases in their respective fields because they need it for their scientific research. These people live off of government money. They are out there to R&D science to then feed it back in.
Why aren't they getting paid R&D a replicable amount that they get funding if they improve carbon emission by entrepreneurial ideas? Like putting a marketing campaign out to educate people, or creating a product so that when you flush your toilet, rather than it being 2 flushes, there's 4. All stuff like that. Like, why aren't they being paid to be innovative rather than fucking just research people? Because the issue with research is they then clamp down on various things, like EPC performances need to be this by this day. Right? How are you going to do that? Who has actually thought about how that's going to be achieved? An industrial building that has a 70-meter door on the front is now going to be an EPC of an A. Fucking brilliant. How do you do that? Do you get lorries that can drive through walls? There's no innovation behind it, which is where I think the issue stands. We know we can be more we know we can be more sort of coherent with Earth, but no one's fixing it. And the fixing that they're doing is actually just fast. It's for fast fix, like electric cars. Everyone's fucking moaning that you can't do anything with the batteries, and they're creating more pollution for the Earth than the actual car itself, being a diesel or a pet. Well, diesel is pretty bad, but a petrol car. And I mean, diesel cars fucking went off, into the most common car sold 5 years ago was a diesel car. Now it's electric. Like, that is a really quick turnaround.
The electricity is created by diesel, by fossil fuels. I mean, once you open this floodgate, once you open these doors, the floodgates open. And if you look back just on the Trump thing about how we were all being mind washed and thought about this certain person being, bad for the world, when you open up these doors, the FUD in everything, including everything you just said there, Jack, which is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So when you start questioning this stuff, you realize that there is always a political gain and it's always a biased opinion for an underlying what's the word for it? Someone's got a different agenda,
Tone.
and they're basically everything we've been fed through, whether it's been the EPC, the energy consumption. As soon as you open up those doors and you start going, but why? Why are we actually doing this stuff? It's where this next disruptive period is going to come, where everything's going to fall apart, and I think that goes down to the underlying money system. I think that every decision that we made through Parliament will crumble, and when it crumbles, I think we'll all go into lower governments where actually the people have more of a say, and the more podcasts, the more media is out there which is unbiased. You won't be able to lie to everyone, which is what they've done. And
let me continue this. Let me continue this train of thought, because it's when I found this out, it's just so obvious what's happened, right? So you got just back to these hundreds of thousands of people who are now on government payroll, which they usually are anyway, to go out and do R&D. They're going out to do R&D. They're learning about new things, impacts to from all kinds of stuff, from environmental changes, coastal changes, all this stuff. They're all now on public payroll, getting paid to find carbon increases in their respective fields, and if they don't find it, they don't get paid. That incentive is fucking ludicrous. Exactly. And so what's happening is then what they've done, the government, colluding with major media and the energy markets, and I can't see any other way around it. They're colluding so that they can say, look at the experts, look at the scientists, they're finding signs of carbon increasing. You actually look at the reports, you actually look at the data that they're finding. Yeah, they're showing carbon going up and down in all sorts of different areas, but there is no correlation between carbon and temperature change. The actual correlation, when you look at it, you can look at these two graphs and you'll see different scientists try and use this who are on public sector payroll to find signs of carbon emissions. They show historical graphs of temperature changes in the globe and of carbon parts per million in the atmosphere. They show those two graphs and it looks exactly like carbon affects temperature. When you actually use a chronology chart and show those two lines, that those two graphs sat on each other, it's actually temperature that goes up, and then that affects carbon. That affects the carbon in parts per million in the atmosphere. And it makes a lot of sense, because when temperature goes down and you have, an icy world, you have less life, less trees, less plants, less bacteria in the oceans, causing carbon emissions and all other kinds of emissions. And that is where predominantly most of the emissions in the world come from. Human beings today only account for 3% of the emissions in the atmosphere. The rest of it comes from bacterial life, plants, methane, cows' asses, but a lot of it is volcanic activity. That's where most of it's coming from. We are a tiny speck in that change, not to mention that there is actually no historical data of carbon emissions affecting temperature. It is temperature that affects carbon. But we're being told that it's the other way around and that we need to reduce carbon levels, when actually what's happening, and here's much more sound evidence of why we have temperature swings in the first place. Because why does temperature go up and down? There's contractions of the planet to do with gravitational forces in our solar system, but the main reason is solar flares. So we have radiation from gamma rays from deep in our galaxy that they're coming to hit our planet. They're radioactive. They interact with the particles in our oceans that creates more cloud formation. When there's more cloud formation, then you have a more insular world, and it can create a heating effect. Whereas when our sun is low in solar activity, it's not deflecting a lot of those gamma rays from deep within our galaxy. But then the sun does emit solar flares, and that emits deflects a lot of the gamma rays coming to hit our oceans, which creates a lot more cloud formation. Therefore, we have less clouds. And that is the simple correlation between temperature and then you look at the solar flare activity over the last few hundred years, and there's the exact correlation between temperature changes and solar activity in our sun, and they line up exactly. So it's got fuck all to do with carbon emissions.
Yeah, right. But that doesn't fit with our political agenda. So it's going to charge you more for more installation on the buildings, mate.
So we're going to hit net zero. It's just mental.
Did you know we're actually, out of every country in the world, we're 7th for the most advanced to progressing to net carbon? I've got the charts up here. Sweden's number 1, Norway's, Denmark, Switzerland, all the Nordics, Austria, Finland, and then United Kingdom. Then New Zealand. New Zealand's got fuck all people in that country altogether. Really, they've got more land than they've got people. France, which I was actually quite surprised about, they're quite messy,
Advance.
and then Iceland. And I mean, to be in the top 10, why are we pushing this as the main point of agenda? Like, if I was top 10 in the world, whatever I want to be, playing chess. Brilliant, yeah. Play a bit of chess in your spare time, but you've also got to live. You've also got to cook. You've also got to provide for the, like, why are we focusing on one little thing that we're already quite staply good at? But also think about the issue I have with a I'm all for it, and I know what Ryan's sort of general sort of position on this, that whatever we do as little worms on this massive planet, whatever's happening outside in the solar system is going to impact it differently. I do to a certain degree agree with him there, but also we can be better. You can live many different lives on the earth. You can be quite forgiving to the earth, or you could be quite difficult and not forgiving to it. So yeah, improve, but incremental changes. Improve 2% a year for your whole life, and that's good enough. And also have a long-term view, because everything that we're being pushed is short-term solutions in most cases. And actually, for an example, I went to a talk where there was a contractor that was producing zero carbon homes, and they said that for all of their mortar, they use sand that's off the back of sandblasting plants. So sandblasting is where you use a tool that shoots sand at metal to make it bare and get rid of the rust and get rid of the paint that's already on it. So you end up with a completely raw metal feature that you can then repaint. So it's really popular for like churches. It's really popular for like car chassis. It's really popular in like motor industry and things like that. And how much, if you think about how many foundations are being poured in the UK, how much fucking sandblasting goes on? Not enough to sustain the housing development crisis that we have in the UK. So where do they get it from? China. Right now they're putting sand, which is quite heavy, by the way. Sand is a really heavy element because it's so fine, on a plane and then flying it over to China, or they're putting on a ship and flying over to China. Now that's going in Oxfordshire in foundations. And like, when you actually think of that, it's just fucking nonsense. Why isn't there way better ideas to deal with than sandblasted sand that's coming from China? So I just think we just all need to make a movement. Cool, I'm up for the movement, but it all needs to be realistic. It doesn't need to be, I actually have this phrase in management in our business, because we had someone come and join our business that he was very direct and really bad at managing. But I actually said to him, treat managing people and managing a group as a bit like you're at Weight Watchers. You don't walk into the room and go, right, you're all fat, fucking sort your lives out, and do the shock tactic, because that doesn't work. You go in and you go, if you incrementally improve every day and you improve what you eat, you understand what you're putting it, into your body, you'll feel better and better every day. And that's it. And rather than going in and being like, right, you're going to be 7 stone in 6 months, right? Don't know how you're going to do it. You're going to eat a load of shit. This wafer counts as 1 point, no nutritional value to it. So it's better than eating that than a banana. Because if you actually look at Weight Watchers, for an example, you're promoted to eat stuff that's low points rather than actually good for you. So the nutritional values are fucked. So another not unsustainable model, because people get quick results and you can sell more. So it's all this cycle. And when you take a step back and go, if I just eat genuine organic food, I'll probably lose weight because I'm not eating the shit that you should eat. So the tactic of just like incremental improvement I'm massively for, and I think the government are focusing too much time on not having that attitude.
It's the issues of ephemeral parliamentary terms, isn't it? They need to sell on
ephemeral, what a word.
Ephemeral. They need to sell public narrative on extreme ideas to be able to get in power, because no one wants an incremental improvement. No politicians want an incremental improvement as a headline, because it just doesn't get them elected, and it's just a big problem we have with a democratic landscape. Yeah, for 4-year terms, like, to live in the democracy we've built, it just doesn't bode well for actually sensible policy. Which is a massive issue. And just the last thing on that point as well, there's a really good documentary that you can go and watch. There's quite a few different documentaries where you can go and look at the actual science behind carbon effects in our atmosphere, temperature changes. These are hardline scientists. These are scientists who who are looking at all of this and going, I don't understand.
They've got no agenda. They've got no agenda.
They've got no agenda. So they're just going, they're not paid by the government. They're going, I don't understand that the data doesn't make sense. They're talking about carbon affecting the atmosphere when it's a very clear correlation that temperature affects carbon. And we only account for 3% of carbon. So why are they pushing this? All you got to do is look at the green energy industry, a multi-trillion industry built over the last fucking decade. And who's making all that money? It's your BPs, your Shells, all these companies, the offshore wind farms. And that's where the money is. Corporate collusion with government and public narrative, and it's fucking all of us because we're having to insulate your homes, which is making your homes more expensive, meaning you're borrowing more money, and it's a big fuck on, and it's going to destroy our economy.
For our listeners out there, with the new building regulations and insulation changes, it's actually now more of a challenge to keep the house cold than it is hot. And, solar net gain, which is the generation of heat through light coming through windows and heating up your property, it's now come to the point that is actually more of an issue than the actual heat itself. A lot of people, I'm in a 1960s build and it's cold. It's because it's been shittily built. And a lot of the houses post-war were obviously Victorian and eras before those weren't even insulated at all. And if we take those properties on, we normally insulate them. But if you're in a new build from now on, the insulation isn't the problem. Yeah, there's some element of how your energy is created. And that's something the Nordics do really well, that a lot of them do live off-grid, put in a bag that sort of deteriorates and they chuck it in the river. So their neighbour down the road can drink it the next day. But there should be more funding and focus on innovation. Is my fun.
Do they do that?
Look, just on Jack's point quickly. Just on Jack's point quickly, they just increase the insulation, but now you've got a massive problem with overheating. So now you're punching holes through your brand new insulation just to get the warm air and the stale air out of the building. So over insulation doesn't really work. I mean, there's got to be a balance, really.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just fucking mental. Like, why?
Back
to
100 mil insulation, I'd say.
Yeah, innit? Like, why have we gone and fucked with something like so much? And now, like, it was 20 grand. It was going to cost us 20 grand on a fucking terraced house to improve it to the new reg standards. So we found a way around it where we didn't have to do it by not merging the apartments. And I was just like,
I find the most annoying thing about the insulation is we've got to make bigger. Like, all the timbers are all made so that it nicely fits in 100 mil everywhere. Now you've got to pack it out more. And it's fucking pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's just fucking ludicrous. It's ludicrous. And we need more conversations like this happening across the board throughout the property industry and obviously then in government, because it's not sustainable. We're going to destroy homes. We're going to, because they're going to get shitter and shitter to meet these EPC targets. And we're going to end up with a landscape of shit homes that are really insulated. They get too hot in the summer and they're just going to fall apart because they're made of plastic and polystyrene. Like, I just don't understand. It's fucking mental.
We'll shout out to the channel. Any scientists in the carbon space that want to come on in here that haven't got an agenda,
Absolutely.
We'd love to have you on the channel.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? I'll go back and watch that
nuclear
documentary.
Or nuclear scientist, because I think the answer is nuclear power. Everyone was scared. Again, that was the FUD, and small micro nuclear plants where you can make an abundance amount of energy, and it doesn't matter if you then lose a bit of energy through your property because it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, energy should be trending towards zero. Like, it just should be. But yeah,
have you guys watched the Chernobyl movie?
Yeah. Yes.
On nuclear, fucking crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts. But again, very few people have died. Like, very few people have died in the nuclear industry compared to, you just look at, take a week in the coal mining industry compared to the history of nuclear energy, and many more people died.
If Elon Musk can land a rocket on two little chopsticks in the 21st century, I'm sure we can control a very small concrete reinforced nuclear plant that will fund an abundance of energy. The fact is, Davos doesn't want it. Of course you can. We're so advanced.
The new ones, the new ones can't even melt down. Like, even if you tried, even if you bombed them, the new nuclear plants are so like top grade that you can't. They don't even melt down. It's impossible to melt them down. Like,
people don't even want houses in their back gardens, right? Because of NIMBYism, they're not going to want a nuclear plant in their back.
They're not going to want a nuclear plant. No, they're not. But we
Scotland
can have them.
Yeah, just let Charlie run them. You know, I was talking about the top 10 most efficient countries moving towards net zero carbon. France was in the top 10, and this is actually the reason. So their wastage and usage and carbon footprints are actually quite large. But they have 56 nuclear reactor plants, which produce about 75% of their country's electricity. 75%.
That's
fucking
security,
mental.
isn't it?
And that's the same amount that China has, but China's is, they're probably filthy in those plants. They have the same 56 nuclear reactors. Us in the UK have 9. Russia have 36, of course they do. They're probably making some weapons in some of them. South Korea has 27, probably same story. Canada, 19.
How many have UK got?
9.
9.
One for each Cats Live. Oh, is that too soon?
Yeah,
right?
We got the one a bit too soon, mate. Yeah, I don't know if she's dead yet, but we'll see. I miss my cat, mate. Glad.
Is that the one that weeds in the toilet?
Yeah.
Oh,
she's such a
cute.
sick cat, mate. I still think she's out there. I think she's going to just wander back at some point. But it's the thing with cats, they just fuck off, don't they? But the thing about China as well, like we're heading towards our net zero targets and we're doing all this shit to save the planet, whatever. But as the UK, we're such a tiny, like microcosm of economic not necessarily economic output, but of emissions compared to large countries like China. So we are putting ourselves at a massive competitive disadvantage by trying to follow these strict policies based on our sort of like woke mentality when we're not even affecting anything, because China have such a bigger output of energy and emissions, that why put ourselves at such a disadvantage? I know there's a good thing and a bad thing, and a bad thing don't make a right thing or whatever, but it's not even a bad thing.
2 wrongs don't make a right.
2 wrongs don't make a right, yeah. But the science is wrong. And I will, Jack, what you've just said, I'll go back to that. I'll find that documentary because it names all of the scientists. Don't know if I'm going to fucking get through to any of them.
Just get them on it.
Yeah, try and get one.
I bet you one of them walks like Dorian.
Yeah, probably. He's going to hold me against that. You got a nerd walk. Right, I've got some questions from the audience if you want to just finish off this episode. What are you guys saying? A couple questiones?
Yeah, that's far away.
Couple questions. So our favourite, dunks the balls back. And he said, this is a good one for Dorian, but see what you guys think. Would be interested in hearing your opinions on the term affordable housing. Personally, I understand the land cost, planning costs, construction costs, and margin for the developer. Is affordable housing actually an achievable thing in the private sector, or just a myth that gets bandied about? Surely it's only possible without the margin element and the planning costs. So who wants to take it first?
Well,
I'm happy to shoot.
Go on. I was going to say there's 3 types, isn't there, of affordable housing? So it's shared ownership. What are they? Let's have a look at that. Shared ownership. Go on, Jack. Social rent.
Or social. So I was actually going to go a layer above that, and just categorize and define affordable housing in itself. A lot of people in the councils get confused that affordable housing is housing that is affordable to the private person. And we see affordable housing as a segment of a development that is slithered off a site, and there's different thresholds across different boroughs in the UK. For an example, in Oxfordshire, if you go over 10 units, you have to have an affordable contribution. If you do it in Reading Borough Council, it's on the 2nd unit plus. So if you do 2-unit site, you have to have affordable on site. You can do on-site or off-site contributions. On-site is where you actually provide the housing as part of your development. Typically, where we are, it's about 40% of the site. And off-site contribution is where it's just a fee. So you go, look, site's too tight or it doesn't suit the site well, and you agree a fee. And that is on top of a Section 106 agreement, normally, if that needs to be drawn up, and on top of the community infrastructure levy. What Stuart's talking about is the actual categories that those affordable will fall in, and they can kind of fall in either or. And what developers tend to do, which is the most sort of routine way to do it, is build the units and get paid the cost of building them. And then they are bought either forward sold or post sold to a registered housing association or a local community, or something of that nature. So you basically don't make any margin on those. You actually probably lose a bit of margin, and you definitely lose opportunity cost of profit. But then it can go into Stu's segments, which I'll let Stu
I'll just Google them quickly. So supported housing, which is to support people with mobility issues. Shared ownership, where you can buy a proportion or a segment of the building, and then social rented. They're the sort of the 3 main categories of what affordable housing should be around. I mean, just a quick one on trying to find a registered landlord who actually wants a certain house type is almost impossible because they all run on government grants and money. So when they haven't got any money, no one wants to talk to you until they get a load of money from the government, and then they're all ready to buy whatever they can get their hands on just to spend the money. So the whole thing is, in my opinion, not really set up in a way where there should be a constant amount of money, or I mean, they're trying to do it where the councils don't want to deal with hundreds of different people and have to split the money. They want to work with big companies who they just do a grant with, and then they will then control the funds. We're all for trying to do more social housing and trying to do schemes, but you can't take a site you find, design it, get it through planning, and then try and find a buyer. You need to find the buyer first, and then go out like a bit of a shopping list and try and support. Especially this is the southeast. I think it's quite more straightforward in sort of the Midlands and the north, but in the south, the sites that are available, you have to go and find a site that suits what they're looking for. So it's really difficult, and there is no sort of head body you can talk to or try and have it's not small relationships you work with. It's big corporations, and get in front of these people is very difficult.
Completely agree. There should be a register of everyone that's buying. With what locations,
and
what their
they want.
budget is, what they need. Exactly. Because I completely agree with you. We have, and specifically all our social housing is in Croydon. So it technically is social housing, but it's not affordable. And Croydon and Lambeth have one of the worst ratios of homeless people, and we've got 2 empty buildings that are not being filled. So what the government are pushing as affordable housing, I actually really like the concept, because I would rather give the council a house than give them the money that they could build a house with, because they'd fuck it all up and spend double building one unit.
Yeah, exactly. Waste
so
it.
I actually quite like the concept of us building the unit and selling it to them at cost. That's fine by me. That I think that's very enterprising and makes sense. Where the problems are is to actually get that transaction to happen is a minefield, exactly like Stuart says. To find even a pre-start sale or a forward-funded sale is really difficult. And also they can pull out. You have to go like almost free market, get 3 bidders, hold one to it, get some form of commitment. A lot of councils can't even exchange on stuff, pre-exchange on units. So it's a super difficult space to be in. So what was the original question? What do we think of it? Do we think it's affordable? I mean, it obviously is. The people that house these units,
the term affordable housing
on the private market.
And surely it's only possible without the margin element and the planning costs. So
what I think, what I've been thinking for a while. What I've been thinking for a while is that the shared ownership. I mean, obviously, affordability. I mean, we can't stop houses going up in value unless we change the baseline money system, because it's just designed that it's an asset that.
Or put more houses in the market.
You can, but then to do that, you need people to be able to buy them. So, in my shared ownership view, is that if you can afford 25, 35, 40% of that property, you should be able to buy it, and the developer should be able to keep the other half, and you should be able to, you should be in an agreement where you can chip it. I know you can
every year you buy more.
Every year you can buy a bit more. Like it's for me, it's the rent to buy scheme. So to help people actually who are in that position that they just can't get the deposit together, I love the idea of somebody able to rent a unit, but they actually have beneficial ownership of. They own it. They don't own it legally until they pay for it, but they can live there. They can make it their own place. But we are in a legal agreement that as they can afford the extra 1,500 quid, the £1,000, the $5,000 lumps, that they can chip away to for 100% ownership. The thing is with the government grants is that if you own a property, you buy 30, 40% of it, and then you do work to it, you actually only benefit by your percentage. I think they might be changing this now, but for the last 10 years, this has been the case where if you buy a property, you own half of it, and then you do a loft conversion and extension, and you add, you spend 50 grand on it, and you add 100 grand to the property. The government who own the property actually have a 50% of the upside as well, which is just totally wrong, because if it's your money, it should be locked in that property has been sold for that price, and you've agreed to sell it, and that you can chip off the deposit at a much lower rate. And I think that's something that they should do, because it just everyone wants. Well,
I think
the Gen
the issue,
Gen Z's alphas don't want property anymore because they just can't physically afford it. They can't see themselves ever being able to afford.
I think that'll come around. That they will. They'll get to their late 20s and realise, fuck me, I'm not a stable person. I think that will come back around.
Do you think it depends where you live in? Oh, go on, Jack.
I was going to say, I completely agree with you, Stu, that there should be. I mean, it's the whole help to buy, shared ownership, whatever it may be. I think that is a great space, and I also think it teaches independence. If you're in a rented property, you have to worry about your rent, but if you actually feel like you're going to own that property one day, the sort of regeneration of what you do in the garden and redecorating it feels more like yours, and I completely agree with that. I think where you'll come unstuck a little bit is if the government don't pull together a good method of funding that. Banks will struggle to get their head around it, because they'll go, right, Stuart's got property A, it can rent for £1,500 a month, and you've got candidate A who wants to do a shared ownership. What's their income? What are they doing? How can they pay for their segment of the mortgage? And then eventually, if they're going to be going from paying 5% of the mortgage to 100% of the mortgage and some rent topped up, how does that transition? Because whether they can afford the deposit or not, can their income support buying that property? Whereas yours is the rentability of it rather than the affordability of the income of the person. So I think there needs to be a really clever structure. And I just don't think the UK government's got it in them, if I'm really honest. They just punish us. They just go, tax this, do that, and then we'll fucking give it away for free because it's less maths.
Yeah. No, I know it's not an easy thing to get right, but I just think it needs completely, again, everything needs re-looking at, because it's just not, they're not going to come down unless you measure it in a different currency. And obviously Bitcoin is the thing that I'm living in my world, because everything comes down, you know.
I honestly think that if we spent all of our attention devoted to planning, I think that the affordable market would get a lot more easy, because you have more houses being built, which supports SME developers. You have more houses being rented, more houses being sold. All the big PLCs, they sell. Most of them don't go and build to rent, and they still won't. And the more property prices going up, the less likely they're going to go into build to rent, because capital values are stronger than rent rolls. So what it needs to do is we need to keep flooding the market with the actual units that are deliverable, and focus on that, and let everyone else sort out the problem, because it will get there. We'll very quickly catch up with the supply that we're lacking. Every year that we go by, we're falling further and further behind, which means rents and costs do go up, which means it's less likely for us to be able to support that. And actually, we're building less affordable homes because we're not getting the consents. The biggest delay for developers has been planning. So if we just deliver more, we can deliver twice as much as we're doing today. And if we do that year on year for 10 years, I can guarantee rents won't keep going up at the same rate because it's double the supply. Sale prices won't keep going up at the same rate because there's double the supply. It's just
regulation.
Method. Yeah.
Regulation as well.
And there's better economy. Think about all of the fucking economy we're throwing at it. Another problem I actually know that we would have to deal with after that is procurement, because this in the UK can't sustain delivering 150,000 homes alone. And if we want to double that, we'd need to procure off internationally.
Yeah, the regulation is an important one as well. Like, I personally just don't agree at all with the idea of government providing any funds towards social housing. I understand we need a social safety net for those most vulnerable in society, but it's that most vulnerable terminology that's been exploited over the decades, where now it's like, you've even got a mild case of mental health issue and you're getting free shit everywhere, and it's just not affordable. It's not sustainable. The government can't. They can never appropriate funds properly, and it's created a cowboy market in the social housing space. We've got housing providers who are just either ripping off investors or ripping off the government. And I just think it's all wrong. Where government throws free money, particularly at something so capital intensive like property, and so nuanced and so ripe for exploitation from multiple parts of the supply chain, we're just begging to waste money, which ultimately means house prices just keep going up. And it keeps distorting the free market values. And ultimately, Jack's completely right. If we want to really contribute to affordable housing, planning reform, regulatory reform, those are the two fundamental things that will bring down the cost of housing. We don't have to put in all of this like EPC nonsense and following stringent safety checks and surveys and to the hilt on environmental bollocks. Like, all of that stuff is creating more costs for housing. Then you've got the planning time delays, which also creates a higher cost of housing and a lower delivery. If we can't solve those two things, we could throw all the money in the world at social housing, but it's only going to just exacerbate the problem and create more cost. So in answer to Dunstable's question, I think, yes, fundamentally, social housing, if you're going to do it, depending on which way of the spectrum you're coming from, Dorian's obviously got a different model where, yes, he's got planning costs and things like that, but he is making a margin on delivering the social housing stock. If you're doing it as a part of a Section 106 agreement or a contribution to affordable housing on a PRS site or just private sold site, then you are effectively selling those houses at cost. I don't know whether people bake that into their soft costs and preliminaries as well. I'm assuming they do. But I think you just have to sell it at the affordable market rate, which is probably dictated by a valuer or someone at the council or the buyer.
On that, Wales is a very different model, though, because they've got so many more
yeah.
grants than the UK, which is why his model works in Wales. You've got to look at the things, which is the 106, right, is basically the council's profit share of the development, which is just going out of control. And that's just getting bigger and bigger on top of the council tax and everything else and bringing more people into the area. It's just so many things that just need to be completely reformed and changed. I mean, the cost of cash as well. The thing with social housing, if you forward sell, a development will 30% of the developments, if you're borrowing the money from a bank, is again, that's a third of the profit is going straight to the banks who lend you the money in the first place. So that's the attractive part of doing some supportive housing or some shared ownership schemes, is that you can basically forward sell it, save the cost of cash. And if you're spending 30% of your profit margin on interest on payments on the cost of cash, but you're given a 15% reduction, you're actually netting 15%. You're better off to try and forward sell sites, which is why it's attractive. The trouble is finding either registered landlords who have got the money to spend, or private institutions who want to buy schemes of 50 plus, which then really niches the amount of affordable housing. Because if you're trying to do Class MA and try and work in town centres, there isn't huge amounts of offices that can fit 50 units in a scheme. So then they come with their own complexities. They're not the sort of 10 to 20 unit schemes that we're trying to focus on. But the council is so difficult by the time you've added in all those costs and then the daylight surveys and all the other things, all the bureaucracy that comes around these sites. I can't wait to do a talk on a site we've got at the moment, which is just we are banging our head against the wall, and the power at the council for them just to write a one-line email, abrupt, not interested, trying to make our lives so difficult. To extend something for another 4 months to them is like, I'll just leave it on my desk until you can come and give me the answer to this little bit here or this little bit there. Stick it on a discharge of conditions and we'll talk about it and let us move on with the actual scheme. But they are making things so difficult that every single month is costing us as a small developer 10, 15, 20 grand a month. And you multiply that by 3 or 4 sites because you need a bigger pipeline, as we like to say. That problem escalates. It's such a big problem that you can see why 95% of developers don't make it, because it's just so entwined with mess. It's almost impossible to get through. And the 1 in 100 make it.
Well, can I ask you guys about?
Go on. I mean, I'll just on that tangent, right? Because I know that you got a question there. Like, why aren't councils doing an expedited service? I think planning should just be all the assessments come as a pre-commencement, not a pre-planning. So when you fucking need to test if there's bats fucking on site or badgers or newts or whatever it is. Actually found a newt on one of our sites the other day. It's pretty cool. You do all of that post planning, so you get the planning consent, and then you go, oh fuck, there's newts, I don't know if I want to develop it anymore, but you've only spent a couple of grand in planning. And then second thing that needs to come in is expedited planning costs, so you can pay double to get it done in guarantee 6 weeks, and then they can resource for that and get really good people in. They just go, right, boom, 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 good planning application, see you later, move on. And I guarantee I wouldn't use anything else. It's a bit like fucking security queue jump at the airport. Once you've done it once, it's worth its weight in gold at 15 quid. So I do that every time now. And I'm like, why aren't people paying 15 quid for this? You don't even have to get touched up. You just walk straight through. See you later.
Why aren't the professional consultants that we're paying to do the reports being part of the planning system and help solve the problem? So
some of them are.
Yeah, some of them are, but when you rather pay 5 grand or 10 grand to the council and say, right, here's what we want to do, here's the outline, and bring in your pool of people to go, right, let's get the reports done internally. So
I think all the reports should be done after planning. It buys them more time, gives them more substance to say no, and it makes their life easy. It's all of that should come after the fact of the principle of planning law. And actually, logistically, ecologically, from highways, drainage, right for light, all of that, all of the actual data that you need after the fact, I think things should be a cost exercise after you've achieved the planning. And what developers will do is they'll do the most risky 3 first, then the next 3 risky, then the next 3 risky, and go, well, we've got a deliverable site. Let's crack on.
What do you think about? So this is going to sound pretty mad, but what do you think about completely privatizing the planning system completely? But what we do is implement accreditation system, much like RICS, the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, but for planning. So there'd have to be a new sort of institution set up that regulates the sector, but all of the work, all of the planning, decision making, everything is privatized. It has to be done in line with council plans and things like that. It still has to be a consultation process on what's best for the town. That's nuanced, but it follows reg standards or policy standards that can come from, like we have the MPPF, but more of an accreditation for private planning consultants to be able to be accredited. And in which case, much like surveyors are, and they then act on behalf, they act within a framework, but they're then incentivized to run a business and be profitable. So they'll make quicker decisions. I don't understand why we don't just privatize it. Why does it have to be this public bureaucratic process?
I'm all for privatising. I think the issue that will always come into planning, and Dorian touches on it all the time, is if you try and please everyone, you'll please no one. And that is planning is a community effect. It's very rarely do you actually have to engage. You know, people live in their house for 30 years and love their neighbours. Then as soon as they want to do an extension, they fucking hate each other's guts. Yeah. And it's that only exchange that you have with neighbours that might compromise their investment, their family, their position, their nature of their feel of their property. So I think part of the issue is that whatever structure you will ever put around this, it will never be civil, ever.
But I think that's fine though. I think people would, as they have done already, you just get used to it. And if it's easier and costs less money, and brings down the cost of housing, the delivery of housing, the diversity in the landscape. People have more optionality anyway. I think one of the main reasons people hate when someone builds something next door is because they feel like that's their home, that's their thing, that's forever. They've got no other choice. Whereas if we have a more sort of nuanced landscape, and in the plans, in the local plans, you can just set certain parameters like they sort of do already, rather than each thing having to go through this consultative process. It's already kind of predetermined. If you're on ZYZ street in certain area, you can have as many extensions or whatever you want within this kind of guideline. And then it's the private planning consultants who manage that process in line with the MPPF guidelines. But instead, it's more of an accreditation service like RICS. Like, I don't know why we couldn't do that. I understand local democracy is obviously going to have a bit of a hurrah about it, but that's just going to happen no matter what we do, because NIMBYism, I don't think we can ever get around that really. But certainly by making it easier for anyone to be able to build stuff in their backyard, I think is only a positive change. And if it costs less, you know,
it's a different question, guys.
Name one industry on one service that is better being public than private. There isn't one at all.
Maybe the police. Only the police, do I think, is maybe private industry controlling the police could be distorted incentives. I don't know if that could work.
Yeah, law and order. Okay,
law and order.
Just a question, guys. If you look 30 years out at the UK, right? So I think 30 years ahead. I know what we're going to be in 2060.
What will you be? 80, 90?
Oh, I'll be in a box, mate. I'll be gone. But if you look 30 years out, do you think
fucking big old box
out?
And all?
Yeah, it'll be a long box. Do you reckon we'll go out? Or
I reckon I can makeshift it out of the shelf you got behind you if need be. Sorry,
yeah, man, honestly, it's a good quality oak veneer MDF, mate. It works. Do you think the UK is going to go out, or do you reckon it's going to go up?
I think it should go up.
I think it's going to go up. I think that the reason they're bringing all this high-rise building regulations and stuff in play is because we're going to be forced to go up. And that
we should.
I don't know. What do you think, Jack?
We should go up.
I think the high-rise stuff was brought in because everyone got their hands slapped by Grenfell.
Yeah, of course. I do think
the safety, the fundamentals aren't there. If you're four stories up plus in a building and there isn't a second stair core, you are fucked. That is the fundamentals of it. So I completely agree with that.
But I think the government are thinking long term as well that we have to go up. Really, if they want to try and keep Greenbelt and everything else,
I think we will go up. I mean, if you look at, have you been to Woking? I went to Woking the other day, and it's a really small, cute little town. But fuck, they've got skyscrapers going up, and I loved it. I was like, this feels like space. And I know it's not really a good example, but it's kind of like it feels like a mini city.
Interstellar Woking.
It feels like a mini city. You can see all of it. You know, if you go to London, you're looking at the Shard. You can't see half of the skyscrapers because it's all so spread out and large. Yeah. But you could kind of see the whole sphere of this little city, and it did feel, like downtown America, how they're built. They have like downtown where it's all skyscrapers, and they have suburbs that sort of flex out. So I definitely think the world's going in that way. The difficulty we have is the market towns around the rivers, like where I live, Henley on Thames. You'll never get consent for a skyscraper here. So the communities will be built around like the Milton Keynes. That's probably the best example. Milton Keynes is only like a couple of decades old, and you can actually ride your bike underneath all of the roads in Milton Keynes within 4 minutes, and go from edge to edge of Milton Keynes, and it's all skyscrapers, all retail areas. You've got your supermarkets in the retail areas. It's kind of like a taste of America in the UK, and I do think that that's going to be more adaptive to where the world is going. And obviously over time, nature, a phrase of speech that planning always use is like the like street scene, and like in keeping within the street scene. So if everyone's going up a floor this year, that means everyone's going up another floor next year. When you have a building that's 2 below, you could go 1 above. So naturally we are going to keep going up, but obviously the foundations of just going, right, let's do a 20-story size skyscraper and see how we get on, I do think will become more prevalent.
Yeah, I think
I was in Manchester last week as well, and that's another good idea. 10 years ago, there was no skyscrapers, pretty much, and now it's just flying.
Isn't one of those skyscrapers called the OnlyFans Tower?
Apparently so. I went to build. No, it's got pointed out to me a few times.
I've seen that. I think Darlington's another good example of an early market town, but the benefit of sky rising, right, of going up, the main benefit is if you have local infrastructure in a town centre, i.e. major train links, a nearby airport, things like that, you've got all the infrastructure. So build up, and you don't have to keep building more roads and extending sewer networks and energy networks and things like that. If you just build up, it can be condensed in a more efficient town, and it can create a much better place for a town. Darlington's a good example because there's a lot of light industry that's kind of wearing away, and it's in the town centre, and they're trying to rezone that for like high rises for like 6-7 story buildings. But the economies aren't going to be there for 6-7 stories. If you hit the HRB stuff, I'm assuming it's probably going to be more like 12-15 stories where you actually start getting that economy of scale again. I don't know how much that's been changed. It'd be interesting to understand that now with the new regs that have come in and the 2 stair cores. There's going to be a higher threshold that you have to meet as a minimum for it to be economic. But yeah, I think we'll build up, and I think building out is just wrong.
Interestingly, the making economic sense of the new law coming in, I think it's the same amount of services and floor plate that you're losing per floor. So I think it will probably be, but it just is what it is. That you've got to get the land different or build it differently, because you are losing the same net saleable area every floor that you're going up.
Do you think that's where the margin is going to come back from in the land and the acquisition? Do you think there's going to be a repricing that happens for those kind of sites? Is that where they're going to claw back the lost margin in the square footage? Or more efficient build, or better capital?
I think we're going to be living in smaller spaces over the years to come. I mean, they've obviously increased the floor. I think smaller units, because we're going to have more virtual, more digital. You'll be able to put a headset on or put your contacts in and change the color of the walls, whatever you want. That's speak to someone next to you like they're next to you. That's the way I think we're going to go. I don't think we need less space as we're growing. We don't need huge TVs anymore. We don't need record players.
Yeah, but the world is coming back to that like open, free experience. Like experience life is coming back. It went very tech. People wanting to go to the cinema and do this, that, and the other. And now you go to a festival that's based around a cinema film, and you go and you dress up, and I do feel that the experience part of the world is still hanging quite strong. Of live things that you can do and experience.
Cultural cycles, yeah. But I mean, you definitely look at some of the new builds in London, like the stuff that's just gone up near Shepherd's Bush, Westfield, and they are compact floor areas. Like they have like the apartments they're not generous. They're pretty sub 40 square meters for a 1 bed. Like as a 1 bedroom. Then you got this little kitchen diner, and then you got the little apartment, the little bathroom. They're very compact square footage compared to
how big would you say they are?
I mean, I looked at a few in that Shepherd's Bush, Westfield development, which I think
Berkeley Group one you're referring to, the towers, yeah.
Yeah, all those towers.
They're probably 38, 39 square meters, right?
They're around that sort of size, yeah. They're very cute.
I've just built 18 of them, and I'll tell you what, I'm so impressed with the size. Like, you don't need a huge bedroom to make a bedroom work. If it's well designed, all the designs we've done over on our scheme, I would be happy to live in all of them. If I was either young or divorced or old, I would be comfortable to live in that and actually have a nice life.
It's end user, isn't it? Yeah. If you're talking about a family moving into an apartment, then fundamentally you just need more rooms. Like you need, and I don't think the economy is going to be there for these big apartment blocks to allow for 3 beds and 4 bed apartments. They're just not going to be there. So houses are going to have to still play their way. Well, buy 2 of them and merge them, which some people did. Yeah, did you know what? That there was a Chinese resident who did that in that Shepherd's Bush one. The sales agent was telling me about it. They took the 2 top floors and fucking bashed them through together and put them into one.
We done a development once for a guy in Wimbledon who done that, overlooked the Wimbledon centre court and lived in the building that you see on the telly all the time. And he bought 2 of them and knocked them into a 4-bed. Lived there pretty much his whole life. Yeah, he loves it. He loves the view of London and just like, you got the money.
That's sick. But yeah, I mean, does that bring us to Stu? Didn't you have to go at 8:20?
Yeah, pretty much, but it's all right. I was enjoying that.
Right.
I'll
he's got his warm hoodie on.
Oh no, yeah, take this off. We do the hair and get to a meeting in 25 minutes. So yeah.
But your hair looks
all
lovely.
good.
Don't worry about it. You look great, mate. So we've got a good episode there, talking about all kinds of bits and bobs. We do have a lot more questions to answer, which we'll do in the next episode. We don't have D here today. We haven't acknowledged that. D is off out to London, chopping deals up. So hopefully we'll hear more about that.
Some money.
Return. Bringing in the money. So we'll be back next week. Thank you for everyone who's listened. And obviously we've talked about quite a few niche points in this episode. Have a look at that.
Sounds like you need a bigger pipeline.
Sounds like you need a bigger pipeline, baby. But if you got any feedback for us, let us know in the comments. We'd be interested to hear. We'll try and bring some scientists on in the future as a proper
planning.
podcast.
I was thinking, as you were saying, a planning consultant would be quite good, who actually believes that it needs change, and if they've got some real strong opinions and want to sort of put their thoughts forward.
We've been in that group recently.
Do what, mate?
We've been trying to get one on for 3 weeks.
Yeah. We'll get. Well,
he only goes on WhatsApp on Wednesday nights and just goes, "How do I feel about tomorrow? Fuck it,
fuck it. Let's change it. Let's move it an hour backwards." Fucking hell. All right, but look, anyone listening, thank you for listening.
Ready?
We release these episodes every Thursday at 5:30 a.m. on Spotify and YouTube, and we've just hit 400 subscribers on YouTube. So big love to anyone who subscribed.
Saw that.
Nice, nicely done, and see you next episode.
We'll catch up with Joe Rogan's interview. 47 million views his Trump interview has had.
Is it?
See if we can get there.
Fucking hell, yeah. Good luck to us. All right, big love, people.
500.
Have
See
a
you
good
later,
week.
boys.
Bye.
Roundup sound. Ooh, yeah.